Welcome, and thank you for standing by. All participants are in listen-only mode. Today's webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be posted publicly. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. Now, I would like to turn the call over to your host, Linda Lee. Linda, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Victoria. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Linda Lee, and I would like to welcome everyone to the Exploring Census Data webinar series. For those of you that have been following our series, welcome back. For anyone that may be new to our series, the Exploring Census Data webinar series is a set of webinars where we present data from the Census Bureau by topics. Now, some feature of the series, the webinars are presented on a monthly basis, so please stay tuned for new and exciting topics in upcoming months. Another feature includes access to our archived copies, and the recording of this session, along with the slides and transcripts, should be available in about 5 to 10 business days. Today, we will be providing you with information and data on the construction sector of the economy. You'll learn about both business and demographic data available to help you with your research and make informed business decisions. With that being said, we have lined up 3 speakers for you today that are experts in their field and ready to impart their knowledge on the topic. You'll be able to ask questions using the Q&A feature throughout the webinar, and our experts will be available to you at the end of the presentation as well. Our first speaker is Mr. Aidan Smith. Aidan is an Assistant Division Chief of our Construction Programs area. Aidan will be presenting key information from multiple construction programs that serve as economic indicators. Following Aidan, we have Mr. Philip Thompson. Phil is a Supervisory Survey Statistician with our economic programs. Phil will be presenting the employment aspect of the construction industry from our business programs, the Annual Business Survey, Non-Employer Statistics, and the Economic Census. Then our next speaker is Mr. Ryan Ricciardi. Ryan is a survey statistician from the American Community Survey. Ryan will be presenting the demographic aspect of the construction industry. Now, before we dive into today's session, please note that we are utilizing technology off-site, and we aim to provide you with the best experience possible. Should we experience any technical delays during our sessions, please utilize the chat feature to let us know of issues, and we will mitigate them as soon as possible. Our agenda for today, we will be taking a dive into a brief background about the Census Bureau before we explore the construction sector. Please take note at the bottom of the slide, we have provided the location of our archive recording for you here. Along with that, if you are interested in stories behind the number, please check out the America Counts page where you'll be able to access the stories. We also have data visualizations that you can use for your own needs. All of these resources are free and available on census.gov under the library section of the site. The Census Bureau is the federal government's largest of the 17 statistical agencies, where we conduct over 130 surveys each year, with some of our well-known ones listed here. First on the list, many people recognize the decennial census, which takes place every 10 years, and it counts the population and housing. Next is the American Community Survey, which is a yearly survey on the nation's population. From the business data side of the house, we have the Economic Census that measures American businesses. Now, for the public sector's counterpart of the Economic Census, we have the Census of Governments, and this is the official 5-year measure of the nation's state and local government sector. Our mission is to serve as the leading source of quality data. With that, it may be helpful to know the structure of our data releases. We have a range of release frequencies from the decennial to quinquennials, annuals, and monthlies. And it's good to note that there is an inverse relationship between the frequency of releases and the level of details. So for instance, using the surveys listed on this slide, you'll notice that the Economic Census takes place every 5 years, and it is the most comprehensive data source for business data. Now, while the Annual Business Survey is more timely, the level of details is reduced. Here you'll notice that for business data, we have 17 monthly and quarterly surveys, with some of our widely used ones, such as the building permit surveys listed here. The monthly and quarterly surveys include programs that serve as key economic indicators. And we have 20 economic surveys that are released annually. So with over 130 surveys, I highly encourage you to check our site and discover the possibilities. Because the Economic Census is our largest undertaking for business data, it's good to know that it takes place every 5 years in the years ending in 2 and 7. So the 2022 Economic Census is right around the corner. The survey will be conducted in 2023 with businesses reporting their 2022 year-end numbers. Now, to learn more about the program, please use the link in the third bulleted point that will take you directly to the program's main page. Data is available to you for free for nearly every industry and geography down to the place level. And this type of information can be helpful in making informed business decisions. With that, I would like to turn the presentation over to our first speaker, Mr. Aidan Smith.
All right, thank you, Linda, and thanks everyone for joining us today. I'm going to share my screen. Bear with me for just a second. Okay, I'm excited to share this overview of the Census Bureau's construction indicator programs, and I've got a lot to cover, so we're going to jump right in. So 3 of the Census Bureau's 13 principal economic indicators cover the construction sector. New residential construction, commonly called housing starts, is one of the most critical Census Bureau indicators and is released on the 12th working day of the month. New residential sales, or new home sales, is released on the 17th working day. And finally, construction spending, which is often referred to as value put in place, or VIP, is released on the 1st working day of the following month. All right, before I go into the construction indicators that I just referenced, I wanted to give you just a quick overview of why they're important. So what you'll see here, the estimates from our construction indicators, these actually feed into private residential fixed investment portion of gross domestic product. The graph on the left gives an idea of how significant this component of GDP has been over time. The increases in 2020 and 2021 reflect the relative and perhaps unexpected strength of this category through the pandemic compared to other sectors of the economy. Residential construction is also more than capable of moving the economic needle, so to speak. The graph on the right shows how many percentage points this category contributed to or detracted from total GDP growth each quarter. So let's dig into the first of these indicators, new residential construction. The NRC indicator release includes several key measures of residential construction activity and inventory. Building permits provides a measure of how many privately owned housing units were approved for construction by a building or zoning permit that month. Housing starts indicates how many units have actually broken ground that month. And housing completions provides a measure of how many units have wrapped up construction. The last two measures are what we refer to as the pipeline. Authorized not started reflects the total number of units currently authorized for construction, but that have not yet started. And under construction reflects the total of all units where construction is underway, but not yet completed. New residential construction includes new privately owned single-family houses, townhouses, apartments, and condominium units. Assisted living units are included unless they have 24-hour nursing care. In buildings with a mixture of residential and non-residential space, like office or retail, we attempt to locate and count all of the actual housing units. And alterations to existing structures and new manufactured homes are measured by other surveys and are not part of this indicator. Here, I just wanted to give a taste of the data that the new residential construction indicator provides. On the left, you can see how new residential permits, starts, and completions have tracked following the financial crisis and the more recent growth in permits and starts following the early period of the pandemic. Note the recent divergence between construction starts and completions as well. On the right, you can see the result of that divergence. Projects that have started but not yet completed, or the under construction measure we talked about, has accelerated in just the past few years. So far, we've tackled measures of construction activity, but what about data on sales of these new homes? And this is where our new residential sales indicator steps in. The new residential sales indicator provides a variety of measures related specifically to sales of single-family homes. New houses sold reflects how many single-family homes were sold in the month. And we define a sale by the signing of a sales contract or acceptance of a deposit. The report includes breakouts of this measure by region, by stage of construction, and by sales price. We also produce the median and average sales price for the new homes sold in the month, and these are available at the U.S. level. The for sale inventory shows the total number of permitted units that are built for sale, but where a sales contract has not yet been signed. This is available seasonally adjusted at the national level with breakouts by stage of construction. For the not seasonally adjusted version, we provide breakouts by region and by stage of construction. Our month supply estimate, which is simply the ratio of for sale inventory to new houses sold, indicates how long the current for sale inventory would last given the current sales rate if no additional new houses were built. This is only available not seasonally adjusted and at the U.S. level. The scope of the new residential sales report is effectively a subset of the new residential construction report. Whereas the NRC tracked all new single and multifamily residential construction, the NRS only tracks single-family homes that are built for sale. This means that in addition to excluding multifamily, it also excludes the roughly 25% of single-family homes that are contractor-built on an owner's land, owner-built, or built for rent. Here, I just wanted to showcase some of the key measures we publish as part of the NRS. On the left, you can see the number of new homes sold over time. Note the sharp uptick in sales in mid-2020 and more recent declines coinciding with increasing interest rates and rising prices, among other things. And speaking of prices, the graph on the left illustrates the notable acceleration in average and median prices for new single-family homes over the past couple of years. Up till this point, we've covered residential construction activity and sales almost exclusively in terms of number of housing units. But what about how much money is actually spent building these structures? And what about spending on non-residential construction projects like office buildings, roads and bridges, or power plants? That's exactly where our VIP indicator comes into play. With our construction spending indicator, we provide our data users with measures of the total dollar value spent on all new construction, covering both residential and non-residential projects. Our measures of value put in place are broken out by ownership type, so private versus state and local versus federal, as well as by project type. This includes categories such as single-family residential, lodging, amusement and recreation, transportation, and manufacturing, to name just a few. And once again, we have a few graphs highlighting some of the data that you can access right now on our website. On the left side, note the difference in trajectories in private residential spending, the orange line, versus spending on non-residential construction projects following the pandemic. And if you dig into some of that non-residential data, you can clearly see construction categories that have yet to recover from the most recent recession. In the graph on the right, we've highlighted construction spending for lodging and amusement and recreation categories as an example. So I can't talk about our 3 construction indicators without also letting you know about the 2 surveys on which these indicators are built and the supplementary data products that they provide. First up is the Building Permit Survey, or BPS. The BPS serves as the foundation for our construction indicators, supporting NRC, NRS, and VIP. It directly measures the number and valuation of new housing units authorized for construction. And what is great is that in addition to the permit estimates you find in the NRC release, this survey also produces a wealth of even more granular permit estimates each month. Data are released monthly and annual for not just the U.S. total and regions, but also for the 9 census divisions, all metropolitan areas and states, and all permit issuing counties and local jurisdictions. So what are the strengths of our permit data? Well, because the permit is the first step in the construction process, this estimate serves as one of our most leading indicators for new construction. The sample is large, and local governments tend to be good respondents. And permits are public information, so we can actually release estimates for over 19,800 local jurisdictions each month. Here, I just wanted to showcase some of that detailed geography that's available to our data users. These visualizations reflect our latest annual permit estimates by state and MSA, showing at a glance which parts of the country were most active in terms of new residential authorizations. Users can dive into particular states of interest, as you'll see on the left, and assess permit activity at the county level. And on the right, we have a snapshot of year-over-year changes for all permit issuing counties in the U.S. Now, while these visuals only showcase our data down to the county level, remember that users can actually drill down even further to place-level data, and that's not just for the annual estimates, but for our monthly estimates ongoing as well. Make sure to check out our website, which I have here on the slide, where you can access a variety of different tables and visualizations, some of which are interactive, for our permit estimates. Preliminary estimates are published concurrent with our NRC release, and these more detailed revised estimates are published concurrent with the NRS release, typically a week later. Okay, so the BPS provides excellent information on construction authorizations, but to get that more detailed information about the housing units themselves, we rely on the Survey of Construction. Our Survey of Construction tracks a sample of permitted units and obtains information on whether the project is started, completed, whether it was sold, what was the price, and other characteristics such as how many bedrooms does it have, what was the square footage, what's the heating source, primary wall material, and that's just to name a few. I have to give a shout out to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, as they provide funding for our completions, sales, price, and characteristics data that's collected through the Survey of Construction. So the strengths of our SOC data. Well, one of the biggest strengths are that the start of the excavation is the actual first real economic activity that occurs, as opposed to the permit, which is leading, but that is not yet construction taking place. Also, housing units are followed through to completion, and this provides a very timely measure of additions to the nation's housing stock. And new home sales are counted when a contract has been signed, providing for a more leading indicator of sales activity. Because data are collected by field representatives using personal visits, response rates are very high, and this collection approach provides an opportunity for us to locate and begin tracking residential construction in areas of the country that do not require a permit. And finally, the survey serves as our only source for all the detailed characteristics for new residential units. And speaking of characteristics, one of the things that the Survey of Construction provides above and beyond the new residential sales release is our annual characteristics release. This is made possible by the SOC. It provides an overwhelming amount of detail about new single-family homes each year. On our website, you can find an interactive graphic and countless tables to further dive into all of these different characteristics. The statistics for 2021 were just released on June 1st. And last but not least, the Survey of Construction provides us not just with price data for new homes, but also price indexes, which allow our data users to derive a constant dollar series from the current dollar single-family construction spending series. These indexes are released concurrent with our new residential sales release. And with that, I want to thank everyone for their time today, and I will turn things over to Phil Thompson.
Thanks, Aiden. While I'm bringing up our presentation, I apologize for the brief delay. But there again, thanks, Aiden. Thank you very much for showing us all the national and regional characteristics of housing and construction. But does the Census Bureau have data on companies that do business in the construction industry? And the answer is, you bet. I'll provide you some business statistics that Census gathers on companies that conduct construction activities. The construction sector Covers domestic operations of businesses primarily engaged in these broad types of activities. And they include building construction, heavy construction, land subdivision, and specialty trade contractors. Construction includes new or original construction, additions, alterations, rehabilitation, remodeling, or reconstruction, and maintenance, repair, or service work. These industries are identified by the North American Classification System, or otherwise known as NAICS in our tabulations. Overall, the business statistics from the Census Bureau include data about the company and/or establishments, employment and payroll, revenues and value of construction completed, and inventories, capital expenditures, product lines, and much more. The data that I have listed here on the screen cover all NAICS industry sectors of the economy. The data are extensive and detailed. The three programs I'm going to discuss today are the Annual Business Survey, Non-Employer Statistics by Demographics, and the Economic Census that Linda mentioned to you previously, just a few minutes ago. The Annual Business Survey provides data on business ownership by race, ethnicity, sex, and veteran status for employer businesses. The data are provided by NAICS and geography, and in addition, we provide the data by employment size of firm, sales, value of shipments, or revenue size of firm, characteristics of businesses, and new content each survey year covering such topics as research and development for micro businesses, innovation, finance, and technology. And the latest data that are available is for 2019. As an example, I provided a brief summary of veteran-owned employer businesses. There were 47,076 firms, 9.1% were minority-owned, and 4.8% were Hispanic-owned. To loosely tie in with Aiden's presentation, here's some additional information. NAICS 236 is the construction of buildings, which includes single-family construction companies, and NAICS 238, specialty trade contractors, which includes pouring concrete, site preparation, plumbing, painting, and electrical work. From these data, we find additional details such as 12,972 veteran-owned employer firms classified in NAICS 236, 12.2 were minority-owned, and 8.3% were Hispanic-owned. In addition, in NAICS 238, we also find that there were 31,034 total veteran-owned employer firms classified as 7.9% were minority-owned and 3.7% were Hispanic-owned. The Non-Employer Statistics by Demographics, or NESD, provides business ownership data by race, ethnicity, sex, and veteran status for non-employer businesses. I would add that these non-employer businesses are individuals that own their own business and typically work out of their home and provide construction accordingly. The NESD is compiled from existing administrative records and census data to link demographic characteristics to the universe of non-employers. NESD includes statistics on the number of firms and sales and shipments, receipts, or revenue by NAICS, geography, sales, value of shipments, or revenue by a firm, legal form of organization, and owner characteristics. And these data are available for 2018. Again, focusing on veterans and similar to what I provided for the ABS, I provided a brief summary of veteran-owned non-employer businesses. There were 184,000 veteran-owned construction businesses in 2018. 14.9% were minority-owned, 6.8% were Hispanic-owned, and 2.1% were female-owned. Digging again into NAICS 236, construction of buildings, and NAICS 238, specialty trade contractors, There were 51,000 total veteran-owned non-employer businesses classified in NAICS 236. 13.9% were minority-owned, and 6.7% were Hispanic-owned. There were 130,000 total veteran-owned non-employer businesses classified in NAICS 238. 15.4% were minority-owned, and 6.8% were Hispanic-owned. 6.8% were Hispanic-owned. Through the data I've provided, you can see how the ABS and the NESD data are used. The data are used by the Small Business Administration, minority-owned business development agency, state and local governments, and economic development organizations to help those that need assistance to open a business and help their businesses succeed and grow. The other program that I'm going to discuss is the Economic Census that Linda mentioned to you previously. There's some information she provided, but I'm going to provide some detail on the construction data that are available for 2017 and plans for the 2022 data release. For the data user, the 2022 Economic Census provides NAICS updates. For construction, there are no NAICS industry changes, which is good news for those that are comparing 2022 data to 2017 data and making some comparisons that way. There's going to be some increased implementation of the North American Product Classification System, or NAPS, for product totals, and geography changes. And we'll also continue to use our new dissemination system, data.census.gov, to provide easier access to the data. There are tabulations available for 2017 and planned for 2022, including a first look data set of data, a geographic area series, the NAPS tabulations, establishment of firm size summary statistics, detailed statistics for the U.S. counties, regions, and states, and miscellaneous subjects, such as the value of construction work for the location of construction work done, and core business statistics, including cooperatives and franchises. As you recall, Aiden provided some information on the new residential sales and new residential construction. The Economic Census has some information on new single-family housing construction, except for sale builders classified in NAICS 236115. From the 2017 Economic Census, we find that the number of establishments increased to over 48,000 from 2012. Annual payroll increased to 8.5 billion, and sales value of shipments or revenue, also called value of business done, increased to 68.6 billion. What makes economic census data extremely valuable is the detail that the economic census provides. For NAICS 236115, all of the establishments are classifications as establishments whose primary business activity are builders on land and owned by customers of new single-family housing construction. In the graphic, establishments that are classified as new single-family housing construction primarily received receipts for providing constructions of single detached residential buildings as identified by the NAPS code. And in this case, you would definitely expect to see that. I would note that the graphic does not provide all the NAPS product information that are available for 236115, but you can retrieve the additional NAPS information from our data.census.gov data access tool. Unfortunately, the data are not readily available by geography. The economic census data are used by federal agencies for key economic measures, such as the gross domestic product, national income and product accounts, and the producer price index. They provide policymakers with the evidence-based information used to make sound programmatic decisions. Trade and business associations and chambers of commerce use the data to measure key business facts to gauge organizational structure and product trends. and by businesses for economic forecasts, market research, material use, investment analysis, and other financial decision making. In addition, we also provide the economic census of island areas, which is a part of the economic census. You can find information on selected industries, products, and other economic data for Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands, American Samoa, Guam, and the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. Construction data are provided for these industries as well. The construction and housing industry has an impact on other industries, which include the manufacturing, distribution, and purchases of building materials, home furnishings, appliances, and other related products. In addition, the construction and housing industry has an impact on the service industry, such as real estate, insurance agents, brokers, finance, repair and maintenance, consumer goods, and more. But I'm not going to cover these programs in depth, but I want to make sure that you were aware of the data that are available. So this concludes my presentation on the annual business survey, non-employer statistics by demographics, and the economic census. I now turn it over to Ryan Ricciardi, who's going to provide you some information on the American Community Survey. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Phil. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ryan Ricciardi, and I work in the American Community Survey Office. And today I'm going to explain what the American Community Survey, or ACS, is, and the various topics and geographies it contains. Show you the various ways in which you can access ACS data, and conduct a live demonstration of how you can access social, demographic, economic, and housing data on construction workers using the ACS. To begin, I would like to describe some of the basics regarding the American Community Survey, which is the nation's most current, reliable, and accessible data source for social, economic, housing, and demographic data at many geographic levels. Per year, the ACS surveys 3.5 million residential addresses and helps to inform over $675 billion of federal funding each year. The survey itself has over 40 topics, such as age, educational attainment, disability status, income, and more. The ACS supports over 300 evidence-based government uses. The data products produced by the ACS consist of one-year estimates for populations of 65,000 or more, typically released in September, the calendar year after collection. One-year supplemental estimates for populations of 20,000 or more, typically released in October, the calendar year after collection. And 5-year estimates, providing data for all population sizes. 5-year products are usually released in December, the calendar year after collection. Due to the impact from the COVID-19 pandemic on ACS data collection and data quality, we did not release our standard one-year ACS data products as planned for 2020. Instead, we released a set of experimental estimates from the one-year data. Please see the data release page listed at the bottom of the slide for more information. The content collected by the American Community Survey can be grouped into 4 main types of characteristics: social, economic, housing, and demographic. On the left, you can see some of the social characteristics listed, including popular topics such as disability and educational attainment. The American Community Survey also collects basic demographic characteristics such as age, Hispanic origin, race, relationship, and sex. This is the same information collected on the decennial census. Economic characteristics below include such topics as income, employment status, and the others you see here. Housing characteristics, listed on the right, include both the physical and financial characteristics of housing, such as year built and home value. For those interested in construction industry workers, economic characteristics like industry and occupation will be important. One could also compare industry and occupation with any of the other social, demographic, economic, and housing characteristics to get a more detailed portrait of construction workers. I will show you how to do this in an upcoming live demonstration. Each question on the ACS is required for federal and state government programs. We provide a resource on the ACS website called the Why We Ask page, which gives the public information on the required use cases for these questions, as well as how they appear on the questionnaire. The ACS provides data for more geographies on an annual basis than any other household survey. The great thing about this slide is that you can see how the different levels of geography interact with one another. Lower geographic areas fit neatly within the larger areas directly connected with lines. For example, congressional districts, school districts, and places like cities, towns, and other municipalities fit neatly within states and do not cross state boundaries. But they may cross boundaries of counties or metropolitan areas since they are not directly connected. The ACS's unique ability to report on a wide range of geographies is what gives it such a broad appeal. As shown on the previous slide, ACS covers a large number of geographic areas. Most common of these geographies is at the state, county, census tract, and block group levels. This slide shows the relationship of these geographies and the relationship between them. Here we can see the state of New Mexico and the counties that make up the state, specifically Santa Fe. In the census tract image, we can see the tracts that make up Santa Fe County. Census tracts are statistical subdivisions within a county containing populations of between 1,200 and 8,000 people. Census tracts are then made up by what we refer to as block groups. Block groups have populations between 600 and 3,000 people. And with census tracts and block groups, you can access granular data created by the ACS. And providing data at such geographies is a great attribute of the ACS. Now, with that introduction to the ACS, I'm going to share some resources with you. First, we have the ACS main page, which is a great tool to start with if you have questions about the ACS. This page can be found by going to census.gov, selecting surveys/programs, then selecting ACS. Or simply go to census.gov/ACS. The ACS website contains a lot of information about the survey, data products, tools for data users, and other helpful information. As for finding and accessing ACS data, there are many sources available, including the data section on the ACS webpage that I provided on the last slide. Here is a list of ways to access ACS data. I'll highlight a few of them. Quick Facts provides selected statistics for all states, counties, and for cities and towns with a population of 5,000 or more using the ACS as well as other Census Bureau datasets. It is a fast and easy-to-use application that provides key information. Census Business Builder provides selected demographic data from the ACS and economic data from the Census Bureau to help users start or grow a business or understand the business landscape. Application Programming Interface, or API, lets developers create custom apps to reach new users and makes key demographic, socioeconomic, and housing statistics more accessible than ever before. Census COVID-19 Data Hub provides demographic and economic resources to assist communities concerning the current pandemic. Data.census.gov is the Census Bureau's main data dissemination platform to access Census Bureau statistics. This is the primary way to access data for the ACS. All ACS tables starting in 2010 are available on data.census.gov. It is important to note that data prior to 2010 can only be accessed through the API. Now I will do a live demonstration to show how you can access ACS data for construction workers. I will use the Microdata Access feature on data.census.gov to create a custom data set. As I mentioned earlier, data.census.gov is the Census Bureau's main data dissemination platform. So I will exit the screen and go there now. Right, so I will type in data.census.gov. There we are. So here is data.census.gov, the primary data dissemination platform of the Census Bureau. You could search here by directly typing into the search box or clicking advanced search and applying various filters. But sometimes the existing tables may not have exactly what you're looking for. This is especially true for industry and occupation tables. For example, you cannot find an existing table on the race breakdown of workers by industry, including construction workers. Fortunately, there is an option to create your own tables using the public use microdata sample, otherwise known as PUMS. So I will demonstrate how you can do that. I am going to click on the Microdata tab in the top right here. The most recent one-year data available is 2019, so I will check that and click Next. Here we select variables. You can browse topics by clicking on this drop-down menu, or if you know your variable name, you can start searching for it here. Since I already know what I'm looking for, race and industry, I'm going to go ahead and start typing in those. Specifically, I know the variable I'm interested is called RAC1P. It is the race recode and you can click this drop-down menu here to see what each of these values correspond to. So I am going to check that. And then you can add other variables. In this case, I'll start searching for INDP. And then I will check that. And then now that we have two variables selected, we'll move on to our geography section. Now, with microdata, there is a more limited set of geographies. As you can see here, the only available geographies are region, division, state, and public use microdata area, or PUMA. So let's say you want race and ethnicity data on construction workers in Kansas City. Since city is not an available geography, I'll use PUMAs, which are census-created geographies of around 100,000 people. And I'll use PUMAs to roughly approximate Kansas City. So I'll click PUMA, and then it asks for the state. So I'll scroll down, click Missouri. And now I will select the 3 Kansas City PUMAs. So you've got North Central, Kansas City Central, and South. And now we're almost done. Next, we'll go to the data cards. And here we can check off different responses within each variable. I'm going to leave all 9 race recodes as it is because that's useful to us. But for INDP, the industry variable, we're only interested in construction workers, and there's every industry here. So what I'm going to do is uncheck all responses and then search for construction. And you can see here this variable at the top, CON construction. I'm going to check that. All right, now I will click View Table. And I'm going to rearrange the table for better viewing. race as rows, and geographies and industries on columns. And now we have our custom table of construction workers by race for 3 Pumas that roughly approximates Kansas City, Missouri. You can see here that there are 16,720 construction workers across these 3 Pumas, and 12,299 are white, 2,740 are black, and so on. And you can see the distribution of these workers and their race across the 3 Pumas. You can see of the 2,740 black construction workers, there are 0 in the North Central Puma, and 1,911 in the Central Puma, and 829 in the South Puma. And you can see this for all the other races as well. This is a table that is not available pre-tabulated in data.census.gov or another platform, but it is one that we created ourselves using the microdata. So with that, I will return to the PowerPoint. Second. Okay. So after viewing ACS data through data.census.gov, let's take a quick look at the differences between the ACS and economic programs. First, the 2 main differences are ACS creates estimates based on surveying at the household level, whereas the economic program surveys at the establishment level. ACS categorizes industry by census codes, and Econ categorizes by the NAICS codes. These can be cross-referenced on the ACS website using the code lists in the technical documentation area of the web page. There are also geographic differences. So some geographic levels are similar but not the same. For example, there are places in ACS versus economic places in Econ, and there's zip code tabulation areas for ACS and zip codes for Econ. So first I'll talk about places, which are census designated places. Here we're essentially talking about cities and towns. And for the majority of places in the United States, they are the same between the Econ programs and the ACS. In the 12 New England states, however, Econ programs treat minor civil divisions as Econ places, whereas ACS publishes both places and minor civil divisions, which are county subdivisions. Another difference is zip codes or zip code tabulation areas, otherwise known as ZICTAs. So there's zip codes and ZICTAs. Zip codes correlate to the USPS zip code boundaries and are used by the Econ programs. However, the ACS uses zip code tabulation areas, or the ZICTAs. And ZICTAs are configured by the Census Bureau and created to ensure that enough households are within each ZICTA. Zip codes and ZICTAs are very similar and have only very small differences. Most ZICTAs are the same as their zip code counterpart. Tribal data are covered in Econ programs as tribal-owned businesses within consistent geographies. ACS produces tribal data as a race and publishes these data by specific tribal geographies, such as reservations and trust lands. As for public establishments and public areas, Census Econ programs publish data on the entities themselves, like schools and governments, whereas the ACS provides data within legal or statistical areas. We provide data on people and households residing within a given area. ACS also publishes geographies that Econ programs do not, including geographies like census tracts, urban and rural, and Pumas, which I demonstrated earlier. So as I close out on the ACS this afternoon, if you have further interest in ACS data moving forward and would like to see how other users in the ACS data community are using the data, visit the ACS Data Users group at the URL on this slide. This group improves understanding of the ACS and promotes information sharing among users. discussion threads created by users on various topics and technical questions about the ACS. The site provides information on upcoming ACS data events, and the website also contains PowerPoint presentations and some video recordings from past data user conferences. Membership is free, and myself and colleagues are members of the group consisting of over 3,700 users. So if you do use ACS data, please stay in touch by telling us how the data was used. For example, if you or your organization use the ACS to make an important decision, help your community, or expand your business, visit the link at the bottom of the slide to share your story with us. We do publish these stories after working with the submitter, and these testimonials provide further support for the importance of the data collected through the ACS. And before I hand it over, here is some information for keeping in touch with the ACS. Sign up for and manage alerts on ACS and events such as conferences and webinars via Gov Delivery. Visit our website, census.gov/ACS, or connect on social media using the hashtag ACSData. For support, you can reach out to us at acso.users.support@census.gov or by phone at the number provided on the slide. And if you end up using ACS data in reports or applications, please be sure to source us, as this helps promote the ACS and allow other users to know where the data can be found. Thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you, Ryan, for that presentation. Thank you, everyone, for your interest and time attending today's webinar. Thank you, Aiden, Phil, and Ryan for presenting our audience with a wide range of data that we have from the Census Bureau. Now, before we begin the Q&A portion of this webinar, please take note of the contact information on this slide. For anyone that may be interested in a hands-on in-person training, we have data dissemination specialists in your area that are available to provide this service. Now, as a reminder, we're focusing our Q&A on today's topic, and we'll be accepting questions related to today's topics. If you have questions on other topics, please feel free to send us an email at census.askdata@census.gov. At this moment, to ask your question, please use the raise your hand feature, and I will use your first name to let you know when you can unmute yourself so that you may ask your question. Now, while we're waiting for questions to come in, I want to mention that if you haven't already seen it, we have a new data tool called the My Community Explorer. This is a neat tool that allows you to see business and demographic data about your community in a quick and easy to use format. And I highly encourage you to check it out if you have not already seen it. Let's give it a few more minutes to see if we have questions coming in. All right. So at this moment, without additional questions, I would like to express our thanks to everyone again for attending today's webinar. This concludes today's webinar. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.